The great hall of the Xalarian Academy was silent. Hundreds of alien students sat in rows, their eyes fixed on the entrance. It was not an ordinary day. Today, for the first time in history, a Deathworlder was joining the Academy. The very idea had been shocking to many. Deathworlders were creatures of violence, unpredictability, and chaos. They were survivors of the most dangerous planets, forged in environments where everything was designed to kill them. And yet, one of them had been accepted into the most prestigious school in the galaxy. The doors slid open with a quiet hiss. A lone figure stepped inside. The silence grew heavier. Standing there, with a backpack slung over one shoulder, was a human. He wasn't particularly large compared to some of the towering alien species in the hall, nor did he appear dangerous. But there was something about the way he walked, calm, steady, as if he was completely unbothered by the hundreds of eyes staring at him. A mechanical voice echoed through the hall. "Welcome, first Deathworlder, to Xalarian Academy." Whispers erupted across the room. A few students laughed under their breath. Others simply stared, scanning him as if they expected him to collapse at any moment. The Academy was known for its high standards. Even among the most advanced alien races, only the best were accepted. Many wondered how a human had even passed the entrance exams. A large reptilian alien leaned over to his friend and chuckled. "This is a joke, right? A human. How long do you think he'll last?" "A week." "More like 3 days," his friend replied, smirking. The human, named Daniel, ignored them. He had heard it all before. Ever since he received his acceptance letter, the galaxy's news networks had been in an uproar. Some called him a pioneer. Others called him an accident waiting to happen. He didn't care. He was here for one reason: to prove that humans belonged among the stars. As he walked down the aisle, looking for his assigned seat, he could feel the tension in the air. He passed a group of insectoid aliens, their antennae twitching as they observed him. The blue-skinned student from the Corrivian race narrowed his eyes, clearly unimpressed. Even the Academy staff sitting at the front seemed skeptical. Daniel reached his seat and sat down. The chair adjusted slightly to accommodate his frame, scanning his biology and adapting accordingly. He glanced at the massive digital display at the front of the hall. The first session was about to begin. Before the instructor could speak, a voice from the crowd broke the silence. "Hey, Deathworlder." Daniel turned his head. A tall, armored alien with 4 arms and a crown of bone-like spikes on his head stood up. He was from the Krekthal species, known for their warrior culture. His voice was filled with mockery. "Did you get lost on your way to a zoo?" Laughter erupted across the hall. Daniel didn't react. He simply met the alien's gaze and shrugged. "Nah, I heard they let all kinds of creatures into this place. Figured I'd fit right in." The laughter stopped. A few students gasped. The Krekthal's eyes narrowed. He had expected the human to get flustered or intimidated. Instead, he had fired back without hesitation. The instructor, a tall being with crystalline skin, finally spoke. "Enough. You are all here because you have earned your place. If anyone believes otherwise, they are free to challenge the Academy's decision through academic performance." Daniel smiled slightly. He knew what that meant. No fights, no duels. The only way to prove yourself here was through intelligence, adaptability, and skill. That was fine with him. He had spent his entire life proving people wrong. The instructor activated the holographic display, and the lessons began. As information filled the air, Daniel could already feel the eyes on him. Every student here was waiting for him to fail. He had no intention of giving them that satisfaction. "You said." The first lesson at the Xalarian Academy was unlike anything Daniel had ever experienced. Holograms floated in the air, displaying complex equations and diagrams of alien physics. The instructor spoke in a rhythmic, almost melodic tone, their crystalline form glowing slightly with each word. Daniel listened carefully, absorbing everything. Around him, the alien students worked effortlessly, their species already accustomed to the advanced level of knowledge being taught. A three-eyed amphibian scrawled notes across a floating data pad with rapid movements. A reptilian student beside Daniel flicked his forked tongue in concentration as he processed a complex theorem. For them, this was routine. For Daniel, it was a challenge. He tapped his wrist device, quickly translating the symbols in front of him. The information was overwhelming, but he wasn't about to let that stop him. He had spent months preparing for this moment, studying alien sciences, memorizing equations that defied human logic. He wasn't about to fall behind now. The instructor paused and turned to the class. "We shall now test the application of these principles. Who among you will solve this problem?" A glowing formula appeared in the air. A series of strange symbols and shifting patterns formed an equation that made no sense at first glance. The room fell silent. The students exchanged glances, calculating their chances of solving it first. The Krekthal warrior from earlier stood up. "Easy," he muttered, stepping forward. He moved to the central console and entered his answer with swift confidence. The system processed his response, and a loud beep filled the air. "Incorrect," the instructor announced. Murmurs spread through the class. The Krekthal's jaw clenched in frustration. He stepped back, eyes narrowing as if daring anyone else to do better. Another student, a slender being with translucent skin, stepped up. Their fingers danced across the console as they input their calculations. Again, the system beeped in rejection. Daniel watched them closely. He had no idea what the symbols meant at first, but he saw patterns forming. The shifting patterns weren't just numbers. They were a form of quantum notation, similar to something he had studied back on Earth. He took a deep breath and raised his hand. The murmurs turned into outright whispers. The Deathworlder, trying to solve an advanced equation meant for the galaxy's best minds. The instructor gestured for him to proceed. Daniel stood, stepping toward the console. He could feel the eyes of the entire class burning into him. He quickly analyzed the structure of the problem, breaking it down into smaller parts. If he was right, then the aliens were overcomplicating it. He input his answer. A pause. Then, instead of an error beep, a soft chime rang through the room. "Correct," the instructor said. Unexpected, but correct. Silence. Then the room erupted into hushed conversations. The Krekthal warrior stared at Daniel, his expression unreadable. Others simply gawked, as if the impossible had just happened. Daniel returned to his seat, acting as if nothing had happened. But inside, he knew what this meant. He had just shattered their expectations. And this was only the beginning. The cafeteria at Solarian Academy was unlike anything Daniel had ever seen. Instead of trays and food lines, floating drones zipped through the air, delivering customized meals to each student. Holographic menus displayed a vast array of alien cuisines, most of which looked entirely inedible to a human. Some dishes glowed, others emitted faint hissing sounds, and a few seemed to be moving. Daniel stepped forward, tapping the wrist device provided by the Academy. A message popped up. Human dietary requirements detected. Recommended meal prepared. A drone whirred toward him, placing a sealed container onto the table. He opened it cautiously. It looked like a simple plate of protein-rich meat and vegetables, something the Academy had synthesized based on human biology. He sat at an empty table, aware of the dozens of eyes still watching him. The events of the first class had already spread. A Deathworlder had outperformed the top students in an advanced theoretical problem. The whispers hadn't stopped since. Across the room, the Krekthal warrior from earlier was glaring at him. Daniel didn't need to be an expert in alien body language to understand that the guy wasn't happy. A shadow fell over his table. Daniel looked up to see a tall, insectoid student with chitinous plating and 4 luminous eyes staring at him. The alien clicked its mandibles, considering him. "You are different," it finally said. Daniel raised an eyebrow. "Yeah, I got that impression." The insectoid tilted its head. "No, Not just because you are human. You think differently. You simplify complex things. I wish to understand how. Daniel leaned back in his chair. He hadn't expected that. I don't know, he admitted. Maybe humans just look at problems differently. Maybe we don't follow the same assumptions you do. The insectoid considered this for a moment before nodding. Fascinating. Without another word, it turned and walked away, leaving Daniel with more questions than answers. Before he could return to his meal, another voice interrupted. Deathworlder. Daniel sighed. He recognized the deep, growling voice before he even looked up. The Kreckthal warrior was standing there, arms crossed, flanked by two other students who looked equally unfriendly. You think you're smart, the warrior said, but intelligence alone won't help you survive here. Daniel sighed and picked up his fork. Look, man, I just want to eat. The Kreckthal leaned in closer. Weak creatures like you do not belong among the strong. You will break. Daniel looked up, meeting the alien's gaze without flinching. Maybe, but not today. The warrior's eyes narrowed. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then, with a huff, the Kreckthal straightened. We shall see. As the alien walked away, Daniel exhaled slowly. He had made an enemy. But he had also made an impression. You said. Daniel knew he had to be careful. The Kreckthal warrior, along with his group, wasn't going to forget what happened in class or in the cafeteria. He wasn't here to make enemies, but he also wasn't going to back down. His next class was physical training. He had assumed it would be something simple, maybe running drills or endurance tests. He was wrong. The academy's training hall was an enormous chamber, its walls shifting and changing as if the entire place was alive. Gravity-adjusting platforms hovered above the ground, along with obstacle courses that defied all logic. Alien students stretched and prepared, their various bodies adapted for different kinds of movement. Some slithered, others hovered, and a few had multiple limbs that allowed them to move in ways Daniel couldn't even begin to understand. A Xilarian instructor stood in the center, his crystalline body pulsing with light. Today's session, combat evaluation. Paired matches. No weapons. Murmurs rippled through the students. Some looked eager, others cautious. Daniel kept his expression neutral. Pairs will be assigned, the instructor continued. A holographic display flickered to life, shuffling names into matchups. When Daniel saw his opponent, he wasn't surprised. Kreckthal warrior, Vorkin. Of course. A deep chuckle came from across the room. Vorkin cracked his knuckles, his scaled muscles shifting beneath his combat suit. Good. I was hoping for this. Daniel rolled his shoulders. He had been in fights before. Not against aliens. But a fight was a fight. The students formed a circle as the first pairs were called. Some matches ended quickly. Others dragged on, with combatants using their unique biology to their advantage. A six-limbed reptilian grappled its opponent with precision. A floating cephalopod dodged strikes with impossible agility. Then it was Daniel's turn. He stepped into the ring. Vorkin was already there, grinning. No hard feelings, Deathworlder, the Kreckthal said. But I will enjoy this. The instructor raised a hand. Begin. Vorkin moved fast, faster than Daniel expected. The Kreckthal lunged, swinging a heavy fist toward Daniel's head. He barely ducked in time, feeling the force of the strike pass inches from his skull. If that had landed, he would have been out cold. Daniel didn't hesitate. He stepped forward, using Vorkin's missed attack against him. He slammed his elbow into the alien's ribs, aiming for a weak spot between the armored plates. Vorkin grunted but didn't stumble. The Kreckthal grabbed him by the arm and threw him. Daniel hit the ground hard, rolling to absorb the impact. Pain flared through his side, but he ignored it. He had been thrown before. He pushed himself up just in time to see Vorkin charging again. But this time, Daniel was ready. He sidestepped at the last second, letting Vorkin's momentum work against him. The alien stumbled slightly, just enough for Daniel to strike. He drove his fist into Vorkin's side again, this time harder. The Krekthal let out a hiss of frustration. Daniel didn't let up. He ducked another swing and countered with a sharp kick to the knee joint. Vorkin staggered. For a split second, surprise flickered in his alien eyes. He hadn't expected resistance. But Daniel wasn't finished. He stepped in, using a mix of human boxing and grappling techniques to stay inside Vorkin's reach. He struck fast, not with brute force, but with precision. Each hit landed where it counted. The crowd had gone silent. Vorkin finally stepped back, breathing heavily. His glare was unreadable, but he didn't attack again. The instructor raised a hand. Match over. Daniel exhaled, his muscles burning. He had won. Vorkin studied him for a long moment before giving a slow nod. Perhaps you are not as weak as I thought. Daniel smirked, wiping sweat from his forehead. Glad you're catching up. The crowd erupted into whispers. The first Deathworlder had just held his own against one of the Academy's strongest students. Everything had changed. You said. The air in the training hall still buzzed with tension long after Daniel's match ended. He could feel the stares, some in shock, others in curiosity, and a few filled with something that felt a lot like fear. He had come here as an outsider, a Deathworlder among species that had never seen a human before. But now, they were seeing him differently. Daniel sat on a bench, rubbing his sore arm. Vorkin had been strong, stronger than anyone Daniel had ever fought. But raw strength alone wasn't everything. Humans had learned that long ago. He had used speed, adaptability, and a little bit of earthborn stubbornness to hold his ground. He didn't win through brute force. He won by being human. A soft chittering sound made him look up. The insectoid student from before, the one who had spoken to him in the cafeteria, stood nearby, watching him with all four of its luminous eyes. You are unusual, it said, its mandibles clicking. Daniel smirked. So I've been told. The alien studied him for a moment before stepping closer. I am Threxel. I wish to learn more about you, Deathworlder. Daniel raised an eyebrow. You mean humans? Threxel tilted its head. Yes, you are unpredictable, efficient in ways that defy expectation. I have studied many species. You are different. Daniel chuckled. Different is one way to put it. Before Threxel could respond, another voice interrupted. Daniel. He turned and saw Vorkin standing a few feet away. The Krekthal warrior was alone this time, his usual arrogance replaced with something more measured. You fought well, Vorkin said. Daniel nodded. So did you. Vorkin crossed his arms. I do not like being wrong. But I was wrong about you. He hesitated, as if the next words were difficult to say. You have my respect. Daniel blinked. He hadn't expected that. A grudging nod, maybe. A threat to settle the score later, sure. But respect. That was new. I appreciate that, Daniel said. Vorkin exhaled through his nose. Do not mistake it for friendship. I will still defeat you next time. Daniel smirked. We'll see. As Vorkin walked away, Threxel chittered in amusement. Fascinating. You have changed things already. Daniel leaned back against the bench, exhaling slowly. He wasn't sure what he had changed yet, but one thing was clear. This school would never be the same again. The academy had changed. Word of Daniel's fight had spread faster than he thought possible. Everywhere he walked, he felt eyes on him. Some students whispered as he passed. Others watched in silent curiosity. A few still glared, but their expressions were different now. Less mockery, more calculation. Deathworlder. The word had taken on a new meaning. Before, it was spoken with doubt, or even amusement. Now, it carried weight. Some of the students were wary. Others, interested. Daniel didn't care much for the attention. He had never come here to prove anything. He had come to learn, to survive, to make something of himself in a galaxy that had never expected a human to walk among them. But surviving was getting more complicated. The real trouble started when the instructors took notice. "Cadet Daniel," a voice called behind him as he left the mess hall. He turned to see Instructor Killith, a Xilarian, their crystalline form pulsing with shifting hues. Xilarians were known for their intelligence and precise control over their emotions, which made it all the more unsettling that Killith's glow had turned a deep, unreadable shade. "You will report to the Special Training Division tomorrow at dawn," Killith said. Daniel frowned. Special training. Killith's glow darkened. "You have potential. It would be wasteful not to refine it." It wasn't a request. Daniel sighed. "Got it." As Killith walked away, he felt a presence behind him. He didn't need to turn around to know who it was. "Special training," Vorkin said, stepping up beside him. "They are watching you closely now." Daniel smirked. Wasn't that the case already? Vorkin chuckled, but there was something serious in his tone. "This is different. They do not train just anyone. Some will want to push you harder. Others will want to see you fail." Daniel nodded. He had dealt with worse. "Guess I'll have to show them what a Deathworlder can really do." Vorkin studied him for a moment before nodding. "Do not die, human. That would be disappointing." Daniel laughed. "I'll do my best." But as he walked away, he couldn't shake the feeling that something bigger was happening, and he wasn't sure he was ready for it. "You said." The training hall was silent except for the steady hum of the energy barrier surrounding the combat ring. Daniel stood inside, fists clenched, breathing slow and steady. Across from him, a towering figure loomed. A Xilarian, its crystalline body shimmering in the dim light. This was no ordinary sparring session. This was a test. The Special Training Division wasn't just about improvement. It was about breaking limits, and from the looks of it, they wanted to see exactly how far a Deathworlder could go. "Begin," the instructor's voice echoed through the chamber. The Xilarian moved first, its strikes unnaturally fast, arms extending in sharp, precise motions. Daniel barely dodged, twisting out of reach as the air cracked where he had been a moment ago. He countered with a quick feint, then drove forward, aiming a punch at the crystalline form. His fist connected, only to rebound off the Xilarian's hardened surface. Pain shot through his knuckles. Adapt. That single thought pushed Daniel forward. He shifted his stance, dodging the next strike, and aiming lower, targeting the Xilarian's joints. He struck, fast and relentless, forcing the alien to adjust. The match wasn't just about strength. It was about proving something. A sudden burst of energy knocked Daniel off balance. He barely had time to roll before the Xilarian was on him again, pressing its advantage. His heartbeat thundered in his ears. He was outmatched in raw power. But he had something else. He faked a stumble. The Xilarian lunged, and in that split second, Daniel pivoted, using its momentum against it. He drove an elbow into the alien's joint, forcing a crack in its crystalline structure. The Xilarian staggered. Daniel didn't stop. He followed through with a spinning kick, sending his opponent crashing to the ground. Silence filled the hall. The instructors stepped forward, their expression unreadable. Then, finally, they spoke. Again. Daniel wiped sweat from his brow. His muscles ached, his breath was ragged, but he grinned. "Bring it on." From that moment, there was no doubt. The first Deathworlder had entered the academy, and everything had changed.